meeting to order. I'd ask Patty to do us the honors, please.
Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. My first time running the meeting, so bear with me. It'll be a little embarrassing.
Got it.
So, first things first, can I have a roll call?
Padre Dean,
Here.
Douglas Beatty, John Fairchild, Christopher Gadway,
Here.
Patty LaFlemme,
Here.
Ed Marin, Nicole Pupor,
Here.
Richard Sears,
Here.
David Trudeau.
Here.
Okay. Resolved that the superintendent of school recommends to the Board of Education to approve the agenda. May I have a motion?
Almost in Patty.
Second.
Second, which one? Rick. Any discussion? Questions? Motion passed. Oh, wait. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Next we have reports. Superintendent of schools. What do you have for us this evening?
I do have a couple things. Okay, let's work again. A couple things. So I'm going to beat Jen Parliament to the punch and just mention something. Just mention that our Jen is going to talk to you today about our decreased tax rate, which I like to say, at Beekmantown. And we had a great state aid run and another low increase for our taxpayers. Well, we have a very favorable tax rate, which we're proud that it's going in the declining direction. Also on today's agenda, you'll see we've had numerous topics for a number of years. When we moved from one SRO, we tried to go to 3 SROs. The county wouldn't allow, the county didn't have the ability to hire 2 more SROs under their grant. So we hired 1 SRO at a grant-funded reduced rate, which gave us enough money left in that line from the original SRO line to hire 2 more school security officers, so to speak, and they were retired. Most people, almost everybody that's been there is either retired military or retired law enforcement. And this year we have to change the title from school security. So we still have an SRO, school resource officer, from the partnership with the sheriff's department, but we'll also have 2 formerly known as 2 security guards, which were formerly security officers. We're changing the civil service title, just to change the title. Last meeting we did talk today with school security. We did talk a little bit about school safety. I know I updated the board, but I just want to update the community. We are going to have an active shooter drill on a Saturday. We will compensate people for coming to participate, but I know all the law enforcement agencies are looking forward to participating in that and having that practice. I appreciate my staff who's helped me stay in contact with state police and others so that that's happening. And then we also had a long conversation with the state police agent, Ambrose, who's in charge of really making sure schools are safe, amongst other things. And New York State troopers do a school security audit, and we'll have another. That'll be our second school security audit. The one which you kind of caught me off guard last time. Remembered it. What I forgot it was by Homeland Security, so it was really something. Yeah, it was good. We actually corrected just about all of that, and it was really good. And I'm sure we can always we'll get something new.
Very cool.
So, and we're working hard. We know some things we want to do to have in place. So I think I have a meeting on Thursday with some of the brushing up on a couple of security items around here. The buildings and grounds. So then, lastly, I just want to take a moment and just correct a few things that were said at the last board meeting because it is on public record, and it's important that, we are accurate in how we discuss these things. I know things get a little maybe emotional, a little concerning. I just want to review, so I'm going to start, not to engage in any negative way with anybody, but just to reinforce what the record shows. So I'll start with reverse chronological order. There was one point was brought up that since 1990 or so, the school district hadn't employed administrators, members of the administrative team, as coaches or as people for extracurricular activities. And I know I brought up 2 people that I thought had served in that capacity. I was told no, but they actually, when I go back and check the record, those 2 people had served in both administrative roles and as coaches. On top of that, these are the board records of the appointments of people into administrative team positions and as coaches. So everything from varsity baseball to football to, there's just a lot of different appointments. So that might have been the case back in 1990. I stopped looking, or I guess you stopped looking, thank you, around 2000. But from 2000 on, there's been just a number. Some people on the administrative team, like we had a treasurer who coached a lot of sports, did a great job for a number of years. So I just want to correct that. It's not a policy. It has been happening. When you say, and you come to the board meeting and you want to know who, it's usually a previous board. So you probably, I want people to realize that's a previous board makes decisions. The new board can, that's why, the board can have discussions and sometimes change decisions or have discussions on, maybe, Ed was here or somebody was here, why is that decision made? But I went actually to the records and I actually went to the agendas that are public documents. So I spent a lot of time doing the research because it wasn't sitting well with me on what was said. The other thing that was brought up that I wanted to correct was the idea that the postings weren't handled correctly. And back in, and they were. And when I was told that no, I'm inaccurate, highly inaccurate, I want everybody to know that what I was calling out for recall, it was accurate. So I went to the board meeting minutes and I went to the board video. So it's not just an audio because of COVID, there was a video. And in July 14th of 2020, we had a long presentation from the committee on how we were going to handle this new process, this board adopted process for extracurriculars and athletics. At the 56 minute 21 second mark, Mark Sand asked the question. He sat right there, asked the question, said, how do we handle postings? And I answered, as we had answered previously, that they would be based on evaluations. I said that the first year we would post everything, which we did. That was last year, was the first year completion of the cycle. And then in subsequent years, we would post those not recommended. And that is what we were pointing out, Mr. Marin was pointing out on the evaluation sheet. If you were satisfactory, it says you will be recommended for the appointment. So that was brought up to the full board, and it's memorialized in video, and it's also, there's 3 pages of minutes. They also talk quite a bit. The minutes actually reflect, and the conversations from multiple meetings reflect that we actually did want to make it to be very similar to how we treat teachers and educators. We want to be very similar and help people grow in their profession and not have a 1-year transition Tory situation. So if you go back to, there's 3 pages of minutes, and they have the different times and different things were said. If people really want to get into it, I wouldn't suggest that. But on the July 14th, 2020 reorg meetings, there's 3 pages of minutes. On the August 11, 2020 meeting, there's minutes, and there's an adoption, and there was a small presentation by I believe Mr. Beebe, Mr. Haggett, and maybe Mr. Mayor. There was a motion, unanimous adoption of that process, which we are following. So I did want to clear the record up. I wanted to go back and make sure that what we were saying wasn't, I think, maybe kind of sort of. It was actually documented, memorialized in audio, memorialized in video, memorialized in writing. And we do our best to follow the board process. That's what we do. It's what we get paid to do. I'm sure we mess up. When we do, we'll own it and we'll correct it. So that's my update. Super happy with the low tax rate, and just wanted to clarify a couple pieces of confusion. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for the update, clarification. And as the vice president of the board, I just wanted to take a second and just say real quick that we want to make sure that we're conducting ourselves in a way that the public we're being reflected in a positive light with the public and not engaging in adversarial conversation. Jen, reports.
I've got two good things. At least the first one I think is good. Our audit is complete, which is wonderful. So that's our external audit was completed last week. We have a few loose ends to tie up. I know there's a lot of new board members here, so what normally happens is the external auditor meets with the audit committee, usually in September, and then he comes and meets with the full board in October to go over the financials. Everything was good, so that's always nice. He spent the week with us, and we got everything pretty much completed. And the second is our tax rate we were paying $16.72 last year, and this year it's down to $16.23. So we're actually a 49% decrease in our tax rate. So that's very good news as well. I do have to inform you that the tax warrants, again, I know a lot of you are new, but some of you have seen this before. I don't have them prepared because our star numbers aren't in yet, so I can't prepare the tax warrants yet. So as soon as I get them, which is normally right around the 15th of August, Chelsea will give you guys a ring, and I will need at least 5 signatures on the warrants. There's 2 warrants, one for Beekmantown, Shazy, and Altona, which is the one we have here, and then Jackie Blue collects over for Plattsburgh, so she has her own warrant. So as soon as I get those numbers, I will prepare them for you guys, and Chelsea will help me give you guys a ring and come sign them when you can.
So Jen, do you eventually tell the public that the tax rate went down so they know?
This is where it's on the tax
here.
bill.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a way.
So it'll be reflected on the tax.
It's reflected on the tax bill, yeah, and those get sent out at the end of August. So August 31st, they're normally mailed from the county. They don't come from the school district; they get mailed from the county.
Right.
So,
it's just good news.
Yes, it's very good news. And then we'll start collecting on September 1st, and get that.
Just to clarify, because we usually receive a few complaints about taxes. So the assessments, we don't deal with assessments at all, right? The assessor deals with the assessments. And they might go in and say, your house is worth more now, and your house is worth more now, and your house is worth a little bit less now. And their assessments might go up, and it might increase their taxes overall that they pay, but the tax rate is actually what's going down. So sometimes your tax rate can go down, but they're still going to pay more in taxes because they're assessed. That might happen.
Yeah, but we have control over is the tax rate, but it's all based on the assessments that happen as well. So they're all linked, they're all intertwined. So, like I said, as soon as I get those star numbers, I will let you guys know, and we'll get those warrants signed, and we'll be ready to collect taxes.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. That is good news. Thank you. Okay, guidelines for public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Okay. So we usually set aside a few minutes for public comment. We just ask that you come up to the podium, state your name, and we don't mention people by name or anything like that. If you have questions or concerns that you want to bring up, so feel free. Yeah. The stage is yours.
My name is Kim Ford. I'm a parent of 2 students in the district, one at Montana and one here at middle school. I would just like to request that the JAWS extended learning time be optional for students to use. I feel that the New York State requires school days ample time for students to learn. I feel that the extra 30 minutes per day will go beyond the stimulus threshold for many students and will ultimately have an adverse effect on their education rather than the intended beneficial learning time will bring the school day to over 7 hours. And if you add bus time, ELOs, and sports onto that, it's well beyond a normal workday even for parents. I think I understand the intent of it, but I just think that maybe it should be optional for some students that have a hard time being at school for that long. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Good.
I would say we should go.
Okay. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education to approve the following minutes. We have a motion.
Motion. Bean.
We have a second. Ooh. Okay. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education to approve the CSE, CPSE, and 5-4 recommendations dated 8/9/2022. May I have a motion?
I'll motion Patty. Whoops.
Patty first, Rick second.
Sounds good.
Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda, resignations, termination, creation of positions, appointments and testing accommodations, scoring and proctoring, be and I are hereby approved. May I have a motion?
Motion, Rick?
Rick? David? Okay. Questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I did want to point out, under the appointments, section E, we have with us in the audience Ashley Russell, who has signed on to Beekmantown. You were a Beekmantown grad, and you've come back to teach math. Props to you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Welcome. Okay, number 7.
So the personnel approvals.
Yep, the one we just passed.
So that one covered
That goes.
termination, creation of positions, and appointments.
Yep, it goes through.
It goes all the way through. You know, I apologize. I did have a point of conversation on E. I apologize.
In what way?
That's the probationary dean of students.
Under section E.
Yep. Appointments instructional.
What letters?
6 personnel.
8.
Section E instructional.
Thank you.
Bottom line of page 4.
Yep. Bottom line, page 4.
Where am I not reading this?
So,
I'm on page 4.
yep. So it's this section. Is what I.
Oh, is that
I don't.
appoint as a probationary dean of students? What's the question? Is this?
This is what I sent you earlier today. As far as I had sent out an email asking about points of discussion that we wanted to bring up at the board meeting, and this is something that I sent the email to you and Ed about.
Okay. And so I don't have the answer for you. I've not had a chance to confer with Ed.
Roger that.
Is that something we can address at a later time to clarify?
You want to pose the question and we can see what we can do?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if that's all right. Is that all right, Deborah?
One of the best practices for all board members is
Sure.
to email the whole board or CC the whole board.
Sure.
If you had a question for Dave, you could ask Dave, but CC everybody.
Fair enough. I apologize if
Hey, we're all.
Sounds good. The point of conversation I wanted to bring up specifically under Section E, the appointment of a probationary dean of students, it is really part of it is the title dean of students, because from what I understood last year we had an associate dean of students who oversaw 2 campuses, worked in between the two. In the past we've had assistant principals, deans of students, associate deans of students. I don't really understand why we keep changing titles.
Sure.
And I don't know if this is 100% the case, but I have been told in the past that, we have had assistant principals who have been possibly laid off, and then the title has changed to associate principal. I don't know if that's something that you can confirm.
So we've had all those titles.
Yeah.
And we have had board discussions, and boards have wanted to change titles for a number of reasons. When we move to the associate title, it is as it's been more difficult to secure all employees, whether it's a mechanic,
Sure.
all employees. We wanted to have a better title, a title that you can do more with. That's a little more, I guess, on the hierarchy of titles. You would look at it like as assistant, associate, principal, and then sometimes director, then assistant superintendent. So there is like a perceived, at least, hierarchy.
Okay.
Maybe there's also co-principal in there, which is probably below principal, right?
Sure.
Most people would be like, I'd probably be the principal and the co-principal sometimes, like, probably personal preference, right? So the boards have said, like, let's make some changes for those particular titles. Now, the board has had long discussions, and it's been part of the budget adoption process, to have more support for teachers and families at all schools.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do, and I actually mentioned it last meeting, is we're trying to get to a point where we can have an associate at each building.
So the idea sounds like it is to standardize this to a certain extent across all of our campuses.
Yeah, that's
okay.
And the other board members have said, we love that, and some of those are no longer here, so it's kind of new for you, right?
Fair.
But it is a standardization.
Good.
It's
Cool.
built into the budget, but it's always, it's the magic of finding the right fit, and it's like sometimes, and so one title was new last year was the associate dean, and we put the general term associate in there because we didn't want people to forget in this board that we are really looking for down the road associate principals to help support students, families, teachers, and principals, right? I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the short version, I think, of answering your question. And we can take a deeper dive now or later if we need to.
No, we can later. That's fine. It's just so I better understand the hierarchy in each of the schools. There's new positions, obviously being made. Just making sure I understand it.
Yeah, there's new and there's clarity for the people who take on the dean positions, the newer dean positions of what our overall goal is.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Mr. Beeman did have one question in there that wasn't answered yet, where, say, a person who had an assistant principal was laid off, and we did lay off some during.
So we should probably go into executive session if we want to do this.
Yeah, I was just going to say if we're...
He just posed the question.
I'm just
and
saying
we
we
didn't
want to
get
have
an
this
answer
discussion.
for it.
No, and that's completely understood.
We're treading on dangerous territory again, and we should that's why we use executive session.
Maybe waiting for, a more appropriate time.
We could just hit the pause button right now and go to executive session. We can do that if you want to. It's up to you.
I don't really feel the need to do that right now, but we can address that at another time.
It's absolutely fine by me.
Okay. Significant portion of your question was answered, though, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're back to motion passed. Good to go. Okay. Number 7, resolve that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda: building level emergency response plan, side letter of understanding, BTA personal base and community benefit agreement, be and are hereby approved. May I have a motion?
Motion, David.
May I have a second?
Second, Britt.
Questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda, financial. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda: grants and confirmed tax rolls and authorized tax levy, be and are hereby approved. May I have a motion?
Motion, Britt.
May I have a second?
Second, Patty.
Questions or discussion?
Bring something up. This would be.
Is this a roll call?
Yes.
Okay.
This would be, so there was a public comment made, and instead of having like an interactive process,
Yeah.
because this is a meeting of the board held in public, for the public to watch, if people wanted to follow up, so that item is on here now, right?
Yep.
So people wanted to have, if you had those discussion points and wanted to have that discussion, so this is the perfect time to have
I
it.
know it's confusing.
So for instance, I can help you, I guess. We put we had maybe 3 letters that we put into the portal from people who had a similar, I think she was actually one of them, who had similar comments. Can it be optional? And under this grant, we rewrote the grant during closure period to make it optional, and that's where the term EOL came from. Because we're trying to go back to normal, right? And this has been in place since I think 2014 or 2015. Going back to normal is, kind of all the things. And this was there. This has been in place, but it isn't an option of I want to have this school day. I want more than that school day. So it's not an option. It's a change, or it's not a change. It's a revert back to where we were. So I wanted to add that clarity. If she was here, she could hear that. But I don't know what other questions there might be. But this is the spot where those kind of conversations can happen.
I thought maybe that was going to be under additional items, so yeah.
Well, it's just because that grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So all in favor? Oh, I need a roll call.
Drake Bean,
Aye.
Douglas Beatty,
Yes.
John Fairchild, Christopher Gadway,
Yes.
Patty LaFlemme,
Yes.
Ed Marin, Nicole Kupor,
Yes.
Richard Sears,
Yes.
David Trudeau,
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Additional items to discuss? I think we're not going into executive.
Board retreat.
Oh? Board retreat.
To tee this up, I did just forward something that came across the email a couple hours ago from BOCES. So there's a 2-day, pretty rich proposal out there. I don't know how people feel about it. I know Ed's been working hard with BOCES to bring that locally, which I'm thankful for. The other idea is historically we have a board retreat where we go off-site and have conversations about best practices, goals and responsibilities, goals, things like that. It seems like that's always October when people settle in, and, people are back on vacation and school's going, but that's, the board has to decide whether they want to do that.
So, my impression was, I guess, after reading the email, is that was the training that we would typically go through. So is it different than that?
I'm not sure what emails you're referring to.
I bet. The one that Ed had worked on as far as the local training, or is that separate?
I'm not sure. That it would be separate.
That was the
The
last
local, oh, I do think I remember that.
Yeah.
The local training is something that all new board members have to go through.
Right,
Oh, sorry,
that's what I thought the email was.
That they go through local training or online training, right?
Right.
Okay. So, you're saying the email that I just sent out?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I thought there was another-
Is that the one you were center? Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's the one that just,
Like, I think
I've already seen it too.
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
So that local training could be very, very valuable. Could, we don't want to, we hate to have somebody go through and be like, oh, I just heard this information, right? And Ed was hoping that training would be more robust than anything we've ever had locally, right? So really good, valuable. What we've done
Right.
Beekmantown, just Beekmantown has done is talk a little bit about what we want to do and how, what are some of our issues and how can we function best together. I remember one time we went through a nice exercise. Remember that we figured out how people like their information, and that was valuable. So that's just a little different. It's usually again off-site. We bring in some dinner. We bring in a facilitator, and we spend usually about 3.5 hours kind of going through the meat and potatoes of a little bit of roles and responsibility, which you could probably get anywhere, but more, how does that impact us? How do we want to function? So we can either, if people want to go to the training that I just sent out in that email, that will be robust. There's 2 5-hour sessions, I think, and we could wait and see who goes to that, and either at that point determine whether we want to retreat or not. I just don't want to be asleep at the wheel and not schedule a retreat when we needed a retreat. If we need one. And with new board members,
Right.
I hate the online training. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'd rather be with people that have other questions other than me.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, that training
We did have
Does-
a training here.
that was a retreat.
Yeah.
So the email covers the initial board member training. So, it would be, it's local, so I would think that any new board member would look at that and probably sign up. But definitely having a board retreat, which is separate, where we can, I think that's a great idea. Is everybody on
And
board?
bring up our own questions. I know
Right.
we have to have that training.
Right.
You have to have it done before the year and everything, and it
Yeah.
was very valuable. It was, but it's also very confusing and stuff on some items. Like
Are we all okay with scheduling a retreat separate from the training? Anybody thoughts?
They'll ask you about your schedule.
No
and
issues,
stuff.
just based on schedule.
So I think let's
Yeah.
try to schedule.
Thank you.
and it's usually fairly good time. Helps us understand each other a little bit better.
We've had Ms. Book come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we'll try to do is we'll put out some dates. We'll look at schedules, sports schedules and stuff. We know some kids are playing things, and then we'll ask everybody for 3 or 4 dates. It usually takes a long time because then you also have the facilitator will be able to find NISBA has a bunch of facilitators, and then we'll find a facility, which sometimes it's been in the back of a butcher block, and sometimes it's been here, but we like to try to go offsite. So just tell us you'll be doing that.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to bring up something really fast if I can. Additional items. I get up every morning, go to work. I live very close to the school. I want to give some recognition to the grounds crew. They're out every morning at 5:30, 5:40, picking up garbage, checking the fence, sweeping whatever needs to be swept. And I feel like they don't get that recognition sometimes, so I just want to have it on record that I notice it. Every morning, rain or shine, there's a guy or two out there working his butt off at 5:40 in the morning. So
And mowing. I wish
Yeah,
they'd come and mow my lawn.
everything.
They are, because I go early too to Point of Rush, and
Yep.
they're always out there. And you always see them
So they're doing a
regardless
great
of the
job.
weather.
It looks nice, I mean, everything looks good.
Yeah, flowers are
I think it's
beautiful.
safe to say that I think the admin, support staff all around do a pretty fabulous job keeping things moving and looking great and working with our kids. So overall, thank you. Appreciate it.
For sure. Can I bring something up? The board did adopt a recognition a way to recognize people more formally, and I can give you the forms of one-page simple fill out, and then we haven't done in a long time. We bring them in and we say, hey, we see it. And
I think that's a
it
great
goes
idea,
along.
actually.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that.
Thanks. I really appreciate the work he does too. This place always looks sharp. So the work everybody does.
Okay. Second public comment. Anybody? Okay.
So do we want to go into executive session? There was one item.
I did.
Okay. Resolved that the Board of Education appoint. Does that have to be me?
Clerk Pro Tem. Ed usually hands that out to somebody else.
I'm going to add that.
What's that?
Rick?
Did he say yes or no?
It's the Patty.
Yeah, why
Clerk Pro
not?
Tem this meeting.
All right. I haven't done it yet.
May I have a motion?
Be nice to me, guys.
Motion.
And Rick second.
Was that? I'm sorry. Who motion?
Patrick. And then Rick. Okay. Questions?
So we have to
Do we have to state why?
employment history of a particular person.
Where is that one?
Last bullet
Yep,
point.
Yep. Okay, so entering into executive session. Discuss the employment history of a particular person or privilege. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Enter into executive session.
So we'll go ahead. So there won't be any action coming out of this.
Right.
We'll come out of the meeting. We'll close out the meeting, and the meeting won't be over. That's your cue. You guys can all. Sorry, we messed up.
We want to pass the pro temp and then we do another motion.
Okay. So we passed pro tem. Yep. So, resolve that the Board of Education enter executive session to discuss employment history of a particular person. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So,
Take a 3-minute break. We'll go into
Yeah.
executive session. Thank you.
Oh, it's going way too quick. It's dark already. Oh, okay, sure.
Okay. What do you think?